Hello and welcome to Lantern Lane Stories. Tonight's story is Manos and the Seal Coins of Ancient Greece. In a rocky sea cave on Alonnisos Island, small waves whispered against smooth stone. Manos, a young seal with soft gray fur, rested beside his grandfather on a narrow ledge. The water below glowed deep blue, almost purple in the fading light. "Grandfather, why do we live in caves?" Manos asked. "Why do we hide?" His grandfather's whiskers twitched. He was old, with scars from fishing nets, but his dark eyes were kind. "Because, little one, we were not always this careful," grandfather said. "Once long, long ago, our great-great ancestors lived on open beaches. They loved the sun on their fur. They played without fear." Manos tilted his head. "What happened?" "Come closer," said grandfather. "I will tell you about the ancient times." The cave grew dimmer. A cool breeze carried the salt smell of the Aegean Sea. Manos curled against his grandfather's warm side, ready to listen. 2,000 years ago, maybe more, grandfather began, the people of Greece loved us very much, so much that they painted us on clay pots and carved us on stone coins. "Coins?" Manos said. "Like the shiny things fishermen sometimes drop in the water." "Yes, the Greeks put our faces on their coins so that every person who held one would see us and remember us." Manos tried to imagine it, his own face on something so special. "The poets, too, the great storytellers called Homer, they wrote about us in their poems." Grandfather continued. "They called us blessed. They said the god Poseidon, lord of the sea, and the god Apollo, lord of the sun, had chosen us as sacred animals." "Sacred?" Manos whispered. "Protected, loved by the gods themselves." Outside the cave, the sun was setting. Pink and orange light rippled across the water like fish scales. Manos could almost see those ancient people now, honoring his ancestors. "But grandfather," Manos said, "fishermen told me we are called monk seals. Why are we like the monks in the monastery on the island?" Grandfather's mouth made a rumbling laugh. "Good question, clever one. Look at your own neck. What do you see?" Manos tried to look down at his neck, which made him wiggle sideways. Around his throat was a pale ring of fur lighter than the rest of his body. "That ring around your neck," grandfather explained, "looks like the white hood that monks wear. The holy men who live quietly in monasteries, so people named us for that little white ring." "I never knew my neck was special," Manos said, trying again to see it. "Everything about us is special," said grandfather. "That ring, your dark eyes, your whiskers, all of it marks you as a monk seal of the Mediterranean Sea. And this mark is ancient. The people 2,000 years ago, they saw that ring too, and they honored us for it." A small crab scuttled across the cave floor, its shell clicking softly. The sound echoed like a tiny bell. Manos felt warm and loved hearing these stories, but then grandfather grew quiet. "However, little one, times changed," he said slowly. "The Romans came, then many other people, and the fishermen, they began to see us differently." "Different how?" asked Manos. "They needed to catch fish to feed their families. We also needed to catch fish to live. And when our fishing took the fish that fishermen wanted, they became angry." Manos felt his stomach tighten. "Angry?" "They called us thieves. They said we damaged their nets and stole their food. Many of our kind were. They were hurt," grandfather said quietly. "Caught in nets meant for fish. Hunted for oil that burned in lamps. It took hundreds, thousands of years of this. Our population grew smaller and smaller." "But why didn't they remember the coins, the poems?" Manos asked, his voice small. "Memory fades in humans, little one, and hunger and greed can make people forget what they once loved," said grandfather. "That is why we learn to hide, to go deeper into caves, to live quietly, carefully, the way the monks live in their monasteries." Outside, the sky turned dark. The sea became black, and only the sound of gentle waves remained. But the story does not end there, Grandfather said, and his voice grew warm again. In the year 1992, something wonderful happened. What? Asked Manos eagerly. The people of Europe decided they had made a mistake. They decided we were too rare, too precious to lose forever. They created a protected place, a marine park all around these islands. Alonnisos and the other islands became our sanctuary. What is a sanctuary? Asked Manos. A safe home? A place where humans agreed not to hunt us, not to harm us, a place where we could live like our ancestors once did at peace. Manos' eyes grew wide. Will humans keep this promise? Most of them, yes, said Grandfather. Rangers come sometimes in boats. They watch over us. They count us. Make sure we are healthy and safe. They teach visitors about us. Tell them the old stories, the ones about Homer and the coins and the gods. They help humans remember. So they are like monks too? Asked Manos. Quiet and careful. In their way, yes, laughed Grandfather gently. They are gentle guardians. Manos felt something warm in his chest. Hope, perhaps, or the beginning of understanding. Grandfather, how many of us are left? Manos asked. He had heard fishermen talking about this. Not many, young one, fewer than 800. Some say even fewer than that. Manos tried to picture 800 seals. It seemed like a small number, though he had no one to compare it to. We are the rarest seals in all of Europe, Grandfather continued, perhaps in the whole world. This makes us very special and very fragile, like a glass cup that could break if we are not careful. Does that make you sad? Asked Manos. Sometimes, admitted Grandfather. When I was young, younger than I am now, there were stories of more seals, larger families, caves more crowded with us, but that was before my time. I have only known this careful way of living. But we are still here, said Manos softly. You are here, I am here. Yes, said Grandfather, pressing his nose gently against Manos's forehead. Because the ancient Greeks knew to love us. Because the Rangers know to protect us. Because you will grow up and teach your own children these stories, we are still here. The cave was very dark now. But somewhere above, stars were coming out over the Aegean Sea, the same stars that had shone down on the ancient Greek poets who wrote about seals. The next morning, Manos woke early. Grandfather was still sleeping, his breathing slow and steady. Manos decided to explore the cave entrance. He swam out into the pale blue water of early dawn. The air was cool. A few birds were calling from the cliffs above. As he moved through the shallow, rocky area, something caught his eye. Something small and round, half buried in sand, he dove and pushed it with his nose. It was smooth, flat, worn by centuries of seawater, but still shaped like a circle. A coin. Manos' heart jumped. He knew it could not be the same coin Grandfather had described. Too much time had passed, too many centuries. But perhaps someone who loved seals had dropped this coin in the water. Perhaps it had lain here for decades, waiting for a seal to find it. He pushed it gently with his nose again, watching it tumble. Then he left it in the sand, as if leaving it there was a kind of promise, a promise to remember the ancient Greeks who had loved his kind, to be a worthy heir of that old honor. When Manos returned to the cave, Grandfather was awake, watching the light change on the water. You found something? Grandfather said, though Manos had said nothing. Grandfathers know such things. A coin, said Manos, from the ancient times, maybe. Grandfather smiled, his whiskers brightening in the morning light. Then you understand now. The old Greeks and the new guardians and you and all of us, we are all part of one long story. A story written on the stones and the coins and the waves. Your job is to keep living that story to make it continue. Manos nodded. He understood. That evening, as the sun painted the sky gold and red, other seals began to gather in the caves. Mothers with babies, young males who hunted together, elders who spent most of their time resting. They did not crowd together on beaches like the ancient seals once did, but they were still here, still alive, still blessed by the legacy of the old gods and the care of new guardians. Manos rested beside his grandfather. Watching the sunset turn the water into liquid amber, he thought about Homer's poems, about the coins, about the ring of fur around his neck that made him a monk seal. He thought about 800 seals scattered across the Mediterranean in caves and rocky coves, each one carrying the same mark, the same ancient history. "Thank you for the stories, grandfather," Manos whispered. "Sleep well, little monk," said grandfather. "Dream of the days when our kind are many again. Dream of beaches full of us, playing in the sun the way our ancestors did." The water grew darker. The air grew cooler. Fishermen's boats had all sailed home to harbor. The rangers had gone to their offices and homes. The island itself seemed to take a long, slow breath. In the caves, the seals settled in for the night, safe and warm, carrying a story 2,000 years old in their dark eyes and their pale throat rings. And so Alonnisos also slowly fell asleep. Good night.